Hate it.
Well, moving away from space hamsters, we're moving toward dragon knights and epic heroes of fantasy of yore. We're moving on to Dragonlance. Dragonlance, which has been oh so teased, and of course we just got a little playtest or Unearthed Arcana about it. Here it is. We get told a whopping two things, and not even told. We get shown that there is an adventure book named Shadow of the Dragon Queen and a battle game called Warriors of Krynn. So, kicking things off here, AJ, Dragonlance, yes, no, maybe so.
No.
Ooh, Fred.
I'm going to say yes.
Alrighty. I'll say yeah, but so AJ, why do you say the words that you say? Why do you, why?
Okay, so Dragonlance is for new players only, in a way. I don't think any of the old school players of Dragonlance are going to follow through and be very enthusiastic about the new stuff that's coming out for the new players and the new game and things. And that's something I think everybody should sort of set their expectations to be bland. Dragonlance's original problem is sort of the problem that Wizards of the Coast has with Forgotten Realms, in that they advanced the timeline artificially by 100 years, and it kind of left a lot of people behind who didn't really want them to advance the timeline, particularly because 5th edition hasn't really fleshed out Forgotten Realms with that timeline. So you have no idea what the hell is happening in Halrua or Termish or anything like that. You know exactly what's going on in Wizards of the Coast Dreamland, which is the Sword Coast, but you have no idea what's happening in Estegund, for instance, or the fact that Mulhurran is in fact in a dragon empire. Nobody knows that. Sorry, Murgon. Anyway, it's beside the point. The point is that Dragonlance got split into a before Cataclysmic event and after Cataclysmic event, and the original fandom is split into people who love the before content and hate the after content, and those who love the after content and hate the before content. So bringing that into 5th edition, the inclination of the company would be to take both of those, grab the best bits of them, squeeze them into some sort of book, and then shove it out to them. The problem is that they've got two very invested original authors of Dragonlance who put their foot down and said, no, we want it done this way, we want it done that way, we want you to respect this and do this for the fans, and etc. etc. Dragonlance is an old, tired, left behind, mostly unknown setting that's some fond books that I read a long time ago, but as a role-playing setting, I've never wanted to game there. It's too restrictive, it's too low magic, there's not enough going on, there's not enough information fleshing it out. The source books, the original source books, are gibberish. The history of Dragonlance books is one of the worst of the original books I've ever read in my entire life. It's like they just grabbed shit off the floor and shoved it between two covers and said, here you go. It's like, what's this? I want timelines, not a set of poems and recipes. So yeah, I'm not keen on Dragonlance. Just not.
How you really feel? Fred, Dragonlance, what's up?
So everything that AJ said is very true. But I mean, I guess my perspective is a little bit different in that, for me, I remember the original few novels they put out, and then the later stuff, I didn't like it. You know, it was shallow, or it was off in directions where I just didn't give a toss about the characters anymore. And you could say, well, you know, that's stories pan out that way. But the problem is that good stories are stories that people are drawn to, and if they don't like the characters and they don't like the story, then it's not a bad story, but it's not a story that is going to survive time. And the later novels for Dragonlance have never really survived time. The very early ones have survived time because people remember them so well, and they are such good books. The actual campaign itself, I've never played in a Dragonlance campaign. I think the biggest problem is because we're dealing with dragon riders in a Dragonlance campaign, and you're dealing with a lot of dragons, and so for a dungeon master to run a campaign like this, it requires an enormous amount on the part not of dungeon masters but players for it to work. I don't think that, frankly, I don't think that a lot of old school gamers or even modern gamers have the facilities and the presence of mind to be able to play in a campaign like that without it becoming difficult. Because in a campaign like that, you have to think as a player, I need to make the job of the dungeon master as easy as possible because their job is so hard now. I think the stories are probably not going to be the thing. I mean, the last thing I want to do is see characters from Dragonlance popping up in this. Frankly, I think the best thing they could do is just, it's a setting and you do what you want with it. But we're not getting that. We're getting an adventure. So unfortunately, we're kind of locked into whatever they've cooked up. And I think, frankly, that may have been a bit of a mistake. Although I'm happy to see an adventure, but I'm not sure that it's going to work because we've got a whole lot of new dungeon masters still struggling to get get to grips with things, and then suddenly all these new players that are trying to play with them in a campaign like this. It's asking an awful lot. So, but I still like the idea because for me, since I've been doing it for a little while, I can handle it. And if my players don't play ball, I'll just tell them where to go and I'll just stop because that's how I am. And so yeah, for me, it's very selfish in that I probably couldn't have done this 20 years ago. I could never have done a Dragonlance campaign. And I couldn't have played in one. I probably couldn't have dungeon mastered one. It would have been too hard. But for me now, it's appealing.
Yeah. I think, funnily enough, Dragonlance has something that was far different from the rest of a lot of the things going on in the old school days, where you had, it was the common meme that, PCs die left and right. But in Dragonlance, that was not the case. You played these pre-made characters and their story had to continue. And what that would mean is if you drop to 0 HP for whatever reason, you don't die. If you're fighting in the middle of the field against the orcs, one of the orcs grabs the character and runs away with them. You're fighting on the cliff, you drop to 0 HP, someone pushes you off. You're fighting the dragon picks you up and flies away. And I think that's kind of funny how all these years later, that's how a lot of groups run. A lot of groups run games where PCs don't die. And, my thoughts on that, whatever. You run your game however the frick you want. But yeah. I do think that's pretty funny that we're doing that. But in regards of telling people, hey, play these pre-mades, I don't know how that's going to go over with people. I genuinely don't know if you could get the air quote average D&D player now and give them pre-gens or pre-mades and say, here, now run the full campaign with these characters that are never going to die. I don't know how well that would work out. I've got no clue. But more interesting than the adventure or whatever the case may be, I'm far more interested in the style of play of commanding units. And that is what I think that the other product is here to deliver. I think that because Dragonlance, for those of you that don't know, it was very much the common motif that it would be armies against armies and massive, continent shaking events and stuff like that. And 5e.
Bear in mind also that Dragonlance was published originally 38 years ago. Under TSR, so this is not even original Wizard of the Coast property. This was original. This is the stuff that they sort of had in the lockers that they bought the company building, and Dragonlance was in there. I don't think that Wizard of the Coast has a huge investment in it.
Absolutely. And something to reflect upon the old school, first and second edition style of play was it was baked into your character sheet and into the game rules that you would eventually have a keep and you would have people under your command and this and that. But third edition beyond, we haven't had that as much. In fact, like looking around, you can't really see all that much. In fifth edition, can anyone tell me how much a stronghold cost in fifth edition? I know it off the top of my head because I just know, but I don't think a lot of people could.
I do. I believe that it's 25,000 gold pieces for a small castle, and a fortress or palaces in the 50,000. I think it's 50,000 for a larger castle, and I can't remember what page of the Dungeon Master.
It is on page herpity derp, but basically one of them costs like 400,000 gold. And so and there's no rulings at all about how to command armies. There's no rules at all about this and that. And I genuinely believe that there is a desire for that, because Matt Colville, I'm sure y'all have seen Matt Colville's Kickstarter killed it. Yep. He made at least like $2 whole off of that, Kickstarter, right?
And I'd love to go through and make the condensed version of that book, because actually the usable rules content of it is fairly compact. Like he's got a big adventure, the Siege of Castle Rend, in the Strongholds and Followers book. The actual sections on the different establishments that you can, keep or temple or tower that your character can build is much more nuanced, and it's actually very simple. Just a general flick through that book, and you can read those about 6 or 10 pages, and you'll get the system pretty much straight away. It's simple, and it works because it works within the existing framework of 5th edition. The armies and keeps and retainers and hirelings and all those costs and the accounting and stuff that's involved in old school world building from the character's point of view is not really supported with the modern game. So not only do you have to produce a Dragonlance that appeals to everybody, they'll probably dangle Rastlin, the wizard, in our faces and hide the Kender, and try and walk that fine tightrope balance of saying, okay, this is something that you new players will be interested in, and we swear. But when in actual fact, it's just fan service for old school players who won't like what's produced anyway. So that's why I think it's largely a waste of time. We've got the potential to build a better Dragonlance. I mean, the original Dragonlance was just dreamed up by the Hickmans as they were driving in their car for an interview at TSR. Yep. So it was built out of their job application process. I don't think it's a particularly inspiring setting. I don't think it's got a lot of capacity for shenanigans and hijinks and bullshit and comedy. It's a little bit too serious. That's another reason why I think the Birthright campaign setting failed, as well as being just too shattered into too many different products that were brought out at the same time. So nobody even talks about Birthright either. That died for the same reason that a lot of the other things did, is because it was just lost in a swamp of new products that were put out. Dragonlance suffered the fate of they changed the setting too radically for the fandom to follow, and I don't think there's any point in trying to resurrect it.
Birthright was no Al Qadim, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oriental Adventures again.
Or Oriental Adventures, exactly, right. Yeah, so I mean, because the whole battle system, I'm sure many of y'all know, dear viewers, but D&D first originated from a war game, right? So I do think that there is the possible return to see, the wargaming aspect brought in. And because there, as much as I'm sure a lot of thespians that enjoy the incredible amount of role play and intricacies and details, there's plenty of people that just want to beat up on some bad guys. And I think that incorporating a D&D campaign with the battle setting or battle system that D&D incorporates in there, I think that could be a great way to go for a lot of people. And personally as well, like having major scale battles also leads to a lot of political intrigue for those of you that are, the super thespians, so there's something there for everybody, for sure. So that is Dragonlance. And mind you, I guess we didn't even talk about this, but for those of you that didn't know, a Dragonlance is literally like a weapon that does like 3d12 extra damage to a dragon or whatever. And that's all there is to it.
Oh, it's much worse than that. It's much worse than that.
It's a crap weapon, but dragons are scary. Mind you, back in the day, dragons used to do damage equal to however much HP they had left. So you want to hit them hard and hit them quick, right?
Yeah.
So,
my prediction, by the way, if you're asking me what Hasbro's next acquisition would be, it's got to be WizKids. Got to be WizKids.
Okay.
Mainly because, remember Frostgrave, the battle skirmish game where you had groups of miniatures that had you basically point by at a group of miniatures, and then you would tactically battle them off on an open sort of map area with objectives and stuff. Fairly simple. Much easier to do in 4th edition than 5th edition, but that's by the wayside because of flanking rules and stuff. At the moment, they're producing boxed games, which are basically like the Shardalon and what are the different box set games? And these are tile-based builder games where the tiles have connectors, and you basically build the board game as you go, and you work your way through, and it's you against the game itself.
Yes.
So the game auto-generates, and it's a way of playing sort of a miniature skirmish game solo, which is interesting, and you can play Hero Quest like that. In many ways, it's like a successor to Hero Quest in a way, but it's not like a tactical skirmish game where you are against an opponent. And I think Wizards of the Coast buying WizKids miniatures would give them that miniatures oomph that Games Workshop enjoys, that would allow them to produce their own in-house miniature skirmish games with a wide range of different things, because they don't have control over the miniatures market to the extent that I think that they need. That's just my prediction anyway.
Well, your prediction's probably just as good as the rest of ours, except for you. You know who I'm talking about. All righty, that is going to do it for us today, talking about Dragonlance. What are your predictions about Dragonlance? What's it going to be? Are we going to get a full campaign setting in that book, or is it purely just an adventure? Is the adventure going to be a whole bunch of pre-mades, or can you insert yourself in? And how do you feel about controlling units in 5e? That is going to do it for us, though. Go ahead and tell us all about it, because I would love to hear it.